The stakes are what make the playoffs so good. When make or miss turns into do or die. When the clock ticking down could mean more than just the end of a game, but the end of a player's run with a franchise. There were some complaints that these conference finals lacked drama, both in the East and the West. But that's gone now, with both series knotted up. Now it's best 2 out of 3. And here in Boston, the question is whether this young Celtics squad can regain its footing at home. So far in these playoffs, they've been unstoppable on the parquet, 9-0, and indeed a lot of the problems that ailed Boston's players in Game 3 and 4 in Cleveland should be calmed by being back in front of a friendly crowd. Guys just don't tend to rush as many shots when it no longer feels like the walls are caving in on them. Defensive assignments are easier to maintain. Of course, the Cavaliers come into tonight feeling confident as well. Coach Ty Lue says his team has figured out some of the matchups now. And well, they also have LeBron James. LeBron's played 15 games so far this postseason and dropped at least 40 in 6 of them. And he's certainly been known to release a firework or two in this building. Now as for the West, well, what had looked like it could be a quick series is now a full-on spectacle, thanks to the Rockets just refusing to let go of the rope last night. It had certainly looked grim for them. We got another third quarter of Steffing, raining threes and shaking those shoulders. By the time Sean Livingston unleashed this dunk on Clint Capella's head, the Warriors were on a 27-8 run. And another Golden State win, and another dud conference finals, seemed like a foregone conclusion. But something interesting happened in that moment, as rookie Jordan Bell taunted Capella. Houston stood up and struck back. It wasn't always pretty. In fact, by the end of the fourth quarter, the game kind of felt like watching 2 drunk toddlers going at it. The shot selection was just so rough on both sides. But the Rockets managed to climb all the way back on the scoreboard and stay there. And as Curry misfired his final 3, late, Houston had its win. And now, the rest of us have a series. 2 series, in fact. East and West, each thrilling in its own way, each vibrating with just how much is at stake. 4 teams, best 2 out of 3. Let's go.
Guys, this is just the 3rd time in the last 20 years that both conference finals are tied up at 2 heading into Game 5. Last time was 2012, when, of course, LeBron was with the Heat playing the Celtics, and KD was with the Thunder taking on the Spurs. So familiar faces, interesting places. Guess who was also there at that time? Mr. Steven Jackson. I do want to talk about last night's game, starting with Houston. Stack, what did you see that they did differently?
Well, they got Chris Paul this year. That's the big difference. And I think they're the more feisty team. They played with a sense of urgency. They played hungry. They was a scrappier team. And Chris Paul showed up when James decided to not play for a while. I think that was the biggest thing. I would think they just played more scrappier. They wanted it. They hit first. They talked trash. Everything you need to do to hang around and steal a win on the road, they did it. And that's why they were able to come out with the victory.
And they also made Golden State uncomfortable. You know, when Golden State's comfortable and freewheeling and moving the ball, which they did not do at all at the end of this game, they're impossible to beat. But they made it very uncomfortable for everybody, Clay, Steph, Durant, at various points of the game. And they've said all year, we're going to feed off our defense, and none of us believe them.
Right.
But, you know, the one guy no one's mentioning is Tucker.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he had 4 points, but I don't care how many points he had. He had a major impact on this game, the way Draymond Green has impact for Golden State.
And you saw the Warriors at times, I don't want to say get careless. I mean, they obviously had a great third
careless
quarter,
is the word.
But we saw them get careless, and, you know, they won by 41 points in Game 3. And you saw this after Game 1, by the way, where they came out a little bit more flat and careless in Game 2. We saw that at times during this game, and then after they went on that run in the third quarter, it felt to me that they did kind of sit back a little bit and let the Rockets, who clearly, Steven, you know, they knew at the end, we talked about this on the show yesterday, if the Rockets had lost that game yesterday, that would have been it for them. This was them fighting for the series, that run that they had at the end in the fourth quarter.
And that's why I understand, Rachel, how you don't come out with a sense of urgency. You know you're playing against the number 1 seed. You know James and Chris can turn it on at any time. Put the nail in the coffin. Go ahead and step on these guys. Come out with that same type of energy you had the last game. And they didn't do that. And KD didn't look into it. He was a little nonchalant. You got to be real into it. You got to be real engaged. You got to show a little bit of emotion when so much at stake right now. You plan to go to the finals. It should never be a game where you don't have energy.
And yet, of course, it's the Warriors, so they can kind of have spells and not. And they were
Right.
still up 12 points with 10:45 left in the game. They did, though, miss their final 13 of their final 15 shots they missed. They had 3 turnovers. Jackie, what did you see down the stretch?
What I saw was the most important stat of this entire series as far as I'm concerned. In the final 10.5 minutes, 0 assists.
Wow.
0 assists. This is a team that's known for moving the ball, staying one pass ahead of their opponent and being that devastating offensive team that way. They went into ISO Houston Rockets basketball. That's what they did. And by the way, they don't do it nearly as well as the Rockets.
That's
Right,
a good
right.
point. With them missing shots, were they tired? I mean, I joked during the top of the show, it felt like 2 drunk toddlers with some of that shot selection. But we don't see Golden State miss and take as many bad shots as they did at the end of this fourth quarter. What was going on?
I think it had a lot to do with them probably finally seeing them get rattled. I think they're not used to being in this position. You know, being up 10 in the fourth quarter, you normally know Golden State's going to finish this game. They're going to win. They have the guys to walk this team down and run the clock out. Last night, if you see Steph took some bad shots, they took a whole bunch of shots that they normally wouldn't take early in the shot clock when they were down. They still had time to get back. They was rattled last night. And that's the first time I've seen them, especially at home.
You have to wonder, too, how much missing Andre Iguodala hurt them.
Quite a bit.
I mean,
Quite a
this
bit,
is not
obviously.
a team that is deep at that position. They
Right.
have 602 centers, and yet on the wing, they're a little bit more, a little lighter there. So.
But he's not a big enough reason to blame on why they lost last night.
No,
you
I
know?
don't know if that's why they were
Yeah.
tired.
I mean,
Yeah.
don't we
But
go
you're
back?
right.
Don't we go back to shot selection?
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
shot selection. I mean, and Kevin Durant. At points in the series, I'm like, why doesn't he just shoot every time? Because he can dominate everybody. But I didn't really mean it.
Right, exactly. Be smart.
Shooting from 20 feet out,
Wait,
take these guys into the post. That's what I meant.
Yes.
Wait, I didn't quite
Yeah.
mean exactly.
Did I say that?
Exactly.